Welcome back. So, we're continuing the talk on Brewster's Millions because I just keep getting excited every time I hear about the contest and the scenario. So, I've been digging into it further. And now, what I actually want to talk about is the structure of how would you set something up, such as the Brewster's Millions contest. So, just as a recap, there were a few pieces that were involved. The first was the wimp clause, which again is usually saved for the end, but the wimp clause would give Monty Brewster $3 million if he chose just to take the cash up front, didn't want to do the contest. And then the other piece is essentially spending $90 million for an opportunity to receive $900 million. So there's two parts to this contest. So how would you actually structure it? So the biggest thing that Rupert, Monty's uncle, mentioned was that the money would be given to Monty tax free. So how would you actually set up something tax free? To be able to do that, that requires something called estate planning. Estate planning is one of the five things that every wealthy person knows. So most likely, Monty and his attorneys set something up to be able to give Monty the money tax free, as far as, let's say, the wimp clause. So let's actually start with that first. So if I was setting that up, if I was Uncle Rupert and I was giving Monty the $3 million, the way that I actually would set that up would be just through an insurance policy. Now, there's a number of different types of insurance policies out there, but the beneficiary of an insurance policy gets the money tax free. Now, that's incredibly important because when you're talking about large sums of money, being able to distribute that tax free is incredibly important for estate planning. Why? Because the whole idea of estate planning is you're passing something that you have to another party. And in order to preserve wealth, you want to minimize, if not eliminate, taxes. And insurance is a great way to actually eliminate that. So that's actually what I would use for the insurance policy. But the other side of it, I would actually use a trust. Now, in the second part, I would have to set up a trust for Monty Brewster to essentially be able to spend the $90 million if he elected to do so. Now, the beautiful thing about a trust is a trust actually creates privacy. So in the movie, you remember as soon as Monty gets that $30 million, no, I'm sorry. In the movie, as soon as Monty gets that, yes, $30 million inheritance he's got to spend in 30 days, uh, everybody knows about it, right? So if you actually have a will, it becomes public record, and that very well could happen. But with a trust, it's not public record. And the beautiful thing about it not being public record is you actually have privacy. Now, there's a number of other benefits that are involved with that, but the way that I imagine it is that as Uncle Rupert, I essentially would create a trust for Monty Brewster, but the trust would have Monty as the trustee, and the beneficiary it could have as, let's say, the estate of, Rupert or some other business, but something that was not Monty Brewster. And the reason I would do that is that first off, it would put Monty in a position to spend the $90 million, but in a position to do so. So there wouldn't be any tax implications for what Monty actually was doing. And then in addition to that, if at any point Monty did not perform according to the terms of the trust, he would be removed from that capacity. So the nice thing is the money's never really his to start with, but he essentially has to distribute it or have whatever plan he puts in place in order to make sure that money actually gets spent. And that can be a part of the terms of the actual trust itself. No one essentially has to be notified. He's just in that position. And what that actually can also help with is I looked at an earlier version of Brewster's Millions. I think that might have been released in the 50s. And in that particular instance, it indicated that Monty was actually not allowed to be married at that time because that would create a conflict of interest. But the beautiful thing about trust, it wouldn't matter if you were married or not because the trustee position is only for that particular trustee. So in that case, even if Monty was married, he could still spend the money in the same capacity for the contest and not even have to tell anybody else about it because the money wasn't his. It was just his responsibility to distribute. So that's what I would actually use in order for Monty to run the contest. And then if he was successful, I would then have whatever other pieces for the greater part of the reward. In this particular case, for this structure I'm setting up, it was $900 million. And again, that could be cash and assets or whatever, but that could be distributed in another capacity, whether it's a series of trusts or businesses that would allow Monty to also be able to get in control of that tax free. So name of the game with estate planning is to actually be able to do it tax free. So those are the two things that I would actually do to set everything up. And then it's just a question of Monty would have to sign on the dotted line whether he just wanted to receive the insurance or whether he wanted to be the trustee of the trust in order to spend the $90 million. And then the beautiful thing about the trust and the $90 million, as he actually spent everything, there will be an auditor that would keep the receipts for everything that he spent. But the nice thing about the structure is that there could be particular rules that nothing could be used to fund the trust. In other words, the only thing that was in the trust, let's say, is a $90 million, and nothing can be funded into the trust. So if he's a trustee, he can't actually sign it into the trust. It just has to be something that he just spends. And the only proof that he actually has is the receipt. So at the end of the day, as long as whatever he purchases is returnable, consumable, or returnable or consumable, those are pretty much the two biggest things, are rentable in that case. That's the only thing he'd actually do or use it for.